Hey, good people. Welcome to the Mr. Teacher, Mr. Preacher podcast. I am Kevin. I am the teacher. That is Jake. He is the preacher. And we have a weekly primer episode for you with 5 of our topics that prime you for the week, whether you're an athlete, coach, or parent, to be the best you can be. Jake, good morning to you. Are you ready for
morning? Yes, sir. Let's get it going.
Let's get going. Now, I'm going to play a little bit today because I got some screen sharing capabilities. Usually screen share is not my favorite thing when I'm in a Zoom call, but for visuals sake, I think it's helpful for our visuals to share a little bit, and we'll walk through it. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll look at these, and we'll go topic by topic and be ready to go. So let's jump on in. What do we have? Well, what is in a weekly primer video? Well, what we have is we have our 5 topics as always. We kick off with gratitude, which is our game of good. We will move to Smacktalk, which is our discussion-based game. Team that smacks together stays together kind of idea. We have media, so the media, movies, documentaries, anything that we've been coming across that fits the theme of the month. A flow trigger of the week to drive attention, performance, productivity, creativity. And then just anything we came across that was interesting in the world of life or sports or both, all the above. All right, let's jump to the first section. Gratitude. Here's our weekly prompts. Now, this week I added a little bit more advanced tactic, and it's in the second and fourth one here, and I'll allude to it right now, is I added the point of view. So the point of gratitude and these good games is to have different scenarios where maybe they're adverse or positive or both. And we can take anything that comes at us and find the good in it. So it's kind of finding those silver linings. And this game that we made allows you to do that in basically as many ways as possible. There's so many different variables here. So I'll read them through, and Jake, I'll pass it to you to pick one that you think you'd want to do. And we will go from there. So the first one is, what is a cosmic person in the near past that brought excitement? That's interesting. This second one and fourth one, okay, so we have a point of view, a specific point of view, an extra large thing in the near past that brought calm from an omniscient point of view. Now, third person omniscient means you can see everything. You are acting as God at that point. It's the narrator can see and hear all the thoughts, feelings of every character. So what is a big thing in the near past, maybe outside of yourself, that brought calm at scale in the world? Number 3 is a medium experience in the far future that maybe left you a bit defeated, a little deflated. How might that be a good thing? Number 4 is an extra large experience in the near future from a limited point of view. That means you get the thoughts, feelings of a character, which means another person in this case. So if you get outside of yourself, you say, okay, for me, it would be, okay, what is an extra large experience in the near future for Jake that has him a little bit concerned? How might I find good in that? Okay, he's concerned about this, but that's good. And the final one is a medium opportunity in the present moment, right now, that you are excited about. All right, Jake, before I stop sharing these, which one do you want to tackle? What are you thinking of your weekly dose of good?
Man, I like this layer of this omniscient versus limited view. I'm going to go, so big thing happened this week, right? This is a realm that we haven't dived into, but the Fed didn't raise rates. They paused rates this week, which wasn't too much of a surprise. I think that's what everyone expected. And for a moment, it created calm in the markets. Oh, okay, they're not raising rates. We got a little breather here. We got a moment. Everything was looking good, and it was great. Then they announced, or they had a couple things that followed it, and one of the things was, but we're going to raise rates in the near future, whether it's next 6 weeks, or maybe they'll keep it steady the next 6 weeks. But before the end of the year, we're going to raise it 2 more times, and then everyone. But there was that moment of calm. I was like, okay, we paused. Rates aren't going higher, right? And to go hand in hand with that, I'll bring up inflation. Inflation only went up by 4% this month, and everyone's like, oh, only 4%, down from the 8, 9, 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that it's actually at 4%, but if we're talking mass, big scale, calm being caused, those two items, at least in my world that I saw, that I'm familiar with, created a moment of calm in the world around me.
Very good. Okay. So how is that still good? Like, what would
How is that?
Yeah. So that there was the calm. It's still going to go up. What good do we get from the calm moments?
Sure. Number one is it was a second for everyone to catch their breath. Like, okay, interest rates are going. Hey, inflation's coming down, right? It's been a big topic over the last handful of years. Inflation is increasing. Interest rates are jumping up. The economy seems to be contracting. Money's harder to get. There's a lot of panic. There's a lot of concern about all of that. And those two items gave everyone a second to be at peace with it. I spent some time in the financial world, so I'm around a lot of people who are concerned about this. So the world around me was like, oh, okay, finally, we have a moment. It's not increasing. We have a moment to kind of get our heads about us, take inventory of what's coming in the future, see if we can grow a little bit in the present, and really give us a moment to plan. Okay, and even the announcement, hey, we're going to raise 2 times before the end of the year, also gave people a spot to say, okay, we got a little bit of calm here. We know what's happening in the future. At least we have a general idea of what's going to happen in the future. Now we can plan for it. Now we can wrap our heads around it, come up with a strategy to attack this, and hopefully succeed through it. Right? That moment to take a breath, make a plan, get your head about you, your bearings straight, and then be able to attack the future.
I like that. And applying it to our context, not just personally, but for our audiences, like deliberately planning a day of calm. I think that's what Sabbath is meant for. You know, like you take a break from something. I think in order to do that, like if your team, now we say, okay, your team is overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed as an athlete. Maybe you went through a season of you're grinding, but you get to that halfway point, or even 3/4 of the way through, or right before the playoffs, it's actually beneficial to go 2 or 3 steps backward. You need perspective, you need space, you need calm, whatever calm means for you. And that's one of the harder types of grit that I think a lot of people struggle with, is the grit to recover. The ability to separate and get arm's length away. And that you need that, because otherwise you're too close to the problem. And when you're too close to the problem, you spin your hamster wheel over and over. At least that's what I do. And you just need to smile a little bit. I think that's why we were laughing before we filmed about the videos we watched that give us a little bit of levity in this crazy lunatic world that we live in. We need some of that. You need to go watch a comedian, do something without an outcome, relax a little bit, because that makes you better. And it feels so counterintuitive, but you need to balance those scales backwards. So I like that. We were able to transition financial instability and inflation into sports.
No, there's definitely a grind culture, and we've been talking about hard work, industriousness, absolutely. And this grind culture is preaching go, 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 go. You work more hours to provide for your family, to make more money. You're wasting time. Time is money, and the idea of rest and just taking a break, and you can, you want to work during the week as much as you want, but just having that day to recover, it gives you a sense of belief. I would argue that day to recover is one of the best ways to show belief and faith in yourself and what you do. Also, to show belief and faith in something outside of you and bigger. But even just looking introspectively to say, no, I can take a break. I am prepared for what I need to do. And just having that set time, that peaceful time to organize your thoughts, do something that you enjoy, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
good. Be around the people that you enjoy. I think there's a greater benefit to that than people will willingly admit, especially in that grind culture. That's like 7 days a week, man. I go to bed at, I go to bed at 10 o'clock. I'm up by 3 o'clock. I got my push-ups. You're doing the whole Mark Wahlberg bit. We're not all meant to be Mark Wahlberg. So I think there's perspective in that can get lost in today's culture of grind when we're always on. And thanks to this thing, holding up a phone, if you can't see it, you're expected to be always on in a lot of ways. That's not healthy at all.
Yeah. And that's why I appreciate the work hard and work smart concept. So when we get to Atomic Habits and Effortless by Greg McEwen, there is a chapter I think we need to cover it on easy. What might this look like if it were easy? And this is why we do these prompts, people. It forces you to really sit with something, see it for what it is, hold on to it, and then find the good on the backside. And now we have a takeaway that, when you get the moments of calm, don't fight them, which is what I do. So I'm preaching to the proverbial choir, as it were. All right. Well, we'll have to play with one of those, the different types of points of view as we go forward. I know I randomize them each week, but it really, really hard. So the first person point of view is the other one. So it's you in that emotion, in that thing. But we'll cover the other ones in another time when that product actually launches. But we do have omniscient, we have limited, we have second person. We'll go through all the different points of view and play them. The hardest one actually, Jake, is second person point of view. We'll get to that, but it's a little bit wonky. It messes with people's brains. Third person ain't too bad. But that is what's called perspective taking, where you get outside of yourself and you try and at least imagine what it's like to be in somebody else's head or shoes, depending which point of view you're at. And that's good, because then, you develop empathy and connection and all the other good stuff. Anything else on how inflation and calm relates to sports?
No, I think we were very successful in that endeavor, and we should go while we're ahead.
Oh, okay. I like it. All right. Next one. I'm going to share my screen again. We have our Smack Talk. So these are discussion prompts or debate topics that we pair with a game called Socratic Smackdown. And what it is it's playful banter, right? We're just taking a side, having a little bit of fun. And the teams that talk together are really the ones that are developing that camaraderie and relationship and friendship. Respectful, healthy relationship. You don't have to love everybody, but you got to get along between the lines and on a team. And this is an easy way to do that. You can do it during warm-ups. You can do it as a homework assignment. You got to come back the next day. But here are the 5 prompts that we have for Smack Talk. Right. Jake, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
All right. I'm going to pass this to you. Could you read these 5, and then I'm going to give it to you as well to pick which one you want to smack today. I trust you. Let's see what you got.
All right, numero uno. Summer snack battle. Watermelon or ice cream post-game refreshment. Number 2, favorite water activity. Number 3, best way to pass the time at a tournament as a team. Number 4, a league of their own. Crying, carefree, or cold. Is it okay to cry? And number 5, 60-mile summer radius day off. What are you doing? Would you ever take number 1, would you ever side with watermelon in that discussion? Is it possible?
I don't know, man. Watermelon's like the deal. I mean, if there is a summer fruit, is there a better summer fruit than watermelon? What else? A coconut with a little straw in it? Come on.
But you're putting it up against ice cream.
Well,
I got a choice to eat a watermelon or ice cream. I'm eating ice cream every time.
Well, and you could be like any of our Ivy League people. Are those my only 2 options? No, you could pick something else. You could be the other person. So no, just go with that. What is your post game refreshment? Not drink. We did drink.
And this is summer vibes, right? Okay.
Summer vibes.
Post game refreshment. Man, when I was a kid, what did we do? Right, there's always the big push to go to Dairy Queen, Get your dilly bars, your star kisses. What are this? They have the slushy things, but those would always give me brain freeze, so I stayed away from those. Get your blizzard, your dip cone. They just discontinued the cherry dip cone. Travesty of all travesties. And it's like these people don't pay attention to their audiences. I don't get what's going on. I don't know. Maybe people really didn't get it that often. But
you mean there's other people like Dairy Queen who aren't paying attention to their demographic audience? Who knew?
Who knew?
What are you referencing? I'm not bringing that up. Clue. Not that channel.
No clue on that one. Yeah, ice cream. Man, Cold Stone was a big up there for us. Definitely going in the ice cream world. I don't think I had anything. Summer refreshment. Shaved ice. Shaved ice is clutch.
Okay.
Right. Great thing to grab at the tournament, too. Like, there's the massive amounts of sugar in the syrup. Kids love it, though. Kids love it, man. But you see them walking by, and it's just this, like, borderline blackish, kind of green shaved ice. And you look at the kid, and you're like, what is that, black licorice? What kind of flavor is that? And you just look at your big smile. Every single one. I got every single flavor in there. It just somehow managed to make the color black and a little greenish. But I love it. I love it, Coach. Like, hey, more power to you. I'm going to go with shaved ice. Great snack.
You know what? For this argument's sake, I'm going to stick with the watermelon, okay? Now, here's why. I for whatever reason, you know, I work out. I sweat a lot. I don't do dairy very well after I move. So it sits wrong. Like, I just, you know, and I like it. Don't get me wrong. It tastes great. You give me any of the options you said. I love them all. Just give me the desserts. If I'm going to be refreshed, I'm going to keep that word in mind. You know, and now I have to qualify my watermelon comment because cold watermelon is hard on the teeth. I have sensitive teeth. That hurts. So when we're saying refreshing, can't be so cold it's hurting my teeth. You bite into a good watermelon, it's super cold, been in the fridge. I'm talking about just room temp watermelon, all like a little bit riper. You know, when it gets really red, like give me that. It gets light.
Are we talking reproductive watermelon or unreproductive watermelon?
I have no idea what that means.
Seedless or seeds?
Why couldn't you have started with that?
Because it wasn't as funny.
Jake. Okay, it is funny. I played right into that. That was fun. I'm going seedless. I actually don't mind the seeds, but if I'm getting refreshed, I don't want to deal with them. Like if I'm just chilling, you know, in the summer barbecue world, okay, I'll do the seeds and spit them because it's funny, and you can spit them at people. I got just walloped with watermelon seeds as a kid. You know, people learn how to just zip those things. I'm going watermelon. I'm just going to stay with my guns. We're going to keep the watermelon, especially when they come in. The two ways are the balls. So you scoop them out like a ball.
Sure.
Which there's an art to that. I'm terrible at it, but there is an art to that. And or like the classic pizza style. Like give me like the triangle, just a chunk.
Sure.
And you eat it with two hands, not a single one, like the two-handed.
Two hands. Yeah. And it's got to be snip watermelon. Not regular watermelon.
Whether it's okay to cry at a game, I am interested in that in terms of like as a coach, I'm seeing kids starting to cry because it's interesting. But yeah, take those, run with them, debate them. Super interesting to see what people say. Even Jake and I don't agree on this one. So the watermelon versus shaved ice. What flavor shaved ice would you get? I gotta wrap that bow on that there.
You go blue raspberry is up there. Strawberry for me is up there. I would say those are the two top ones for me. I'd probably go half and half strawberry, half blue raspberry, and then you get the purple little line in the middle. It's classic. It's American to its core. So that's what I'm gonna go with.
Okay, I'm not gonna.
Well, just by flavor too. Like I don't think anyone else in the world on planet Earth I think blue raspberry is an actual flavor. But good old Americans are like, yeah, we're gonna make raspberry blue because it's easier to sell just by the color of it, even though it's not a real flavor. But we're gonna sell it. You know, I'll never forget. You know, you go to the gas station, you get these blue raspberry slushies, and then you're 7 and you're at the grocery store and you're like, Mommy, can we get the blue raspberries today? No, son, we can't get the blue raspberry. Why not? I like the blue raspberries. They're my favorite. There's no such thing as a blue raspberry, child.
This is true.
And it's just you die inside a little bit. You're like, what? I don't understand why someone hasn't engineered a blue raspberry. Hold on, what am I thinking of? There's grapes that taste like cotton candy. If we can get grapes to taste like cotton candy, we can get raspberries to be blue. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Someone start a movement. We need real blue raspberries.
Our initial goal starting this channel was, to teach and to preach to youth sports of any audience, of any type. And I think we've really made some interesting turns here that when does childhood end, Jake? It's when you realize it's not these fairy tale creatures or holidays or, the innocence. When does innocence leave? It's when you figure out there's no such thing as blue raspberries. We could just stop the channel now and just leave there. We're just popping every balloon imaginable. Like, that's it. Yeah. This realization that blue raspberries don't. I've never given this consideration for the record. Oh, we're going to turn away all of our audience members. It's
nonsense. This is what they come here for.
I am probably. Okay.
Did anyone else have an experience? Comment below. Did anyone else have an experience when they realized that blue raspberry wasn't an actual thing? It's a made-up flavor. Because I had that in my childhood when I realized blue raspberry was just something that someone made up, and I couldn't actually have a blue raspberry. Because a little bit part of me died inside when I found that out. So if anyone else experienced that, let us know below.
Oh, well, and if you're not like Jake, I'm sorry for your loss. We should dub this a new term. Your blue raspberry moment. What was your blue raspberry moment?
Absolutely.
Where you realize, like the Matrix, your world is not real. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Inception day. Yep,
Inception. Oh, that's a great movie. We're gonna have to find a way to get movie references into every episode. That's two good movie references.
Okay, one side note, another smack talk. This is how this works, right? You get one thing at least.
Yeah.
This popped up in my life this week. Top 3 Adam Sandler movies, go.
I have to remember my Adam Sandler movies first. All right, let me me personally.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
I'm an older school Adam Sandler fan. Similar to Will Ferrell was funny, and then he just got older and it wasn't as much fun. So and you can throw me under the bus for either of those two, but there was a point where I realized neither of these two grown men are funny anymore. I'm going old school, so that kind of dates me, but I'm going to say Happy Gilmore, no particular order. The Water Boy. The third one's going to get me. All right. Prime me with a couple. Give me a few more Adam Sandler movies.
51st Dates. Billy Madison. Big Daddy. Did you just... To Billy Madison?
It's funny, but I abhor the lack of responsibility. It's a funny movie. I despise the character. It's antithetical to everything I believe in. But it's still funny. You know what? I'm gonna go counterintuitive on this and actually pick one of the newer ones. So yes, I'm gonna backtrack on what I just said. I'm gonna go with the one for the kids. So he pulled off Hotel Transylvania. He took all of his own buddies from Grown Ups, and he was able to diverge into a new series with Hotel Transylvania. So I'm gonna shout out to the kids. They did a pretty good job on those, and the kids seem to like them. I'm not really into the whole vampire thing. I admire the creativity though. He does a very good job with voice impressions, and he's goofy, and he is able who else does that? Where they are able to do a voice for a different who is it? Who's Michael Scott? What's the actor's name? I'm blanking right now.
Steve Carell.
Yeah, he does that with the Minions, Despicable Me. So similar concept. So he and Adam Sandler both kind of can take that persona and do those. I'm gonna go with Hotel Transylvania. Give me yours. I feel like I offended you with Billy Madison.
Billy Madison's one. Billy Madison's one for me. 2 would have Happy Gilmore. Yep. And 3, I would put Big Daddy. And since you went the kids route, I'm going to give honorable mention to Bedtime Stories because my kids love that movie. And he's not... I feel like Adam Sandler, as he's gotten older, has really just kind of stayed himself, and you just can get used to it more so than him not being as funny anymore to me. Where Will Ferrell, it seems like he just he like came up with this persona. It was hilarious when it hit, and now he's older and he's trying super hard to keep that persona, and it just doesn't fit anymore. For some reason, like Ron Burgundy just doesn't hit the same as he gets older.
No.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, those are my 3+1. And I think it's a crime that you would say that about Billy Madison. Oh, Kevin, got the order wrong.
No.
Try again. We've gone off the rails on this one.
I'm moving on. If you have anything to say about Adam Sandler movies, because here's the issue, Jake. Like, you and I think this is funny because we're at a certain demographic. I would have to explain who Adam Sandler is to athletes today. I realized as I was coaching
You think so?
I absolutely think so. I had to explain the reference of Hungry Hungry Hippos. So instead of doing grounders for, like, I had them choose, or we're going to do hippos or alligators. They chose alligators, and I'm like, oh, they're not going to understand what Hungry Hungry Hippos are. And then I realized I'm old. Okay, so now here's another one. Blue Raspberry moment, Adam Sandler, the moment you felt old. That it's when my references started getting out of date, I realized I'm going to be out of touch. However, if you are a coach or a parent, you can stay relevant. I think it's fun when you get to our age and you start to phase yourself out. Like, you start to do it on purpose. Like, you start to give up on trying to connect. Like, oh, what's the cool new hip thing now? Like, no, you give up and you, like, almost by pride and principle, start to stick to your old references and just shame the younger generation, just like our older generation did. You don't know what Metallica is? I don't know.
I would argue you connect more with your group if you just don't try to fit in with them in that way. Like, culturally, there's a huge difference there. I mean, I work with people and their favorite artist is Drake. And I didn't think of them as that much younger than me, but then, like, I mean, Drake was kind of a thing, but he certainly wasn't that big when I was in the movie scene. So I just didn't, or in the music scene, so I just didn't connect to it. But it dawned on me, like, that's just that small difference disconnects me from the culture. And it's not that big age-wise. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, you get around 10-year-olds and it's a massive difference. You'll say things, they'll just look at you like, what on earth are you talking about? And so then you got to fully buy into the weird old guy bit. And we're like, what is this guy talking about? It's not funny at all. I quote movies and they just like, Coach, you're a knucklehead.
If we were on a coaching staff, Jake, I think that our references would be inside jokes. You know, in kids' movies that they put jokes in for the kids or the adults, excuse me. Mm-hmm. That's what I think coaches need to do. We just need to, into our coaching bits, when we're explaining a drill, throw in references that only the other coaches will get. And then just don't say anything about it. Like, don't explain it to the kids. That's what you do wrong, is don't explain it to the kids. Just throw it in there just as a hat tip to the other adult that I'm still cool, you're still cool. They don't understand.
Yeah. I'm on board.
All right, I'm moving to section number 3 so we don't have weekly videos be over an hour and a half again.
Let's go.
Let's go. These are supposed to be short. Anyways, a movie and media. Okay. All right. So I've been tying movie and media to the theme of the month. So I watched The Standard. That was in our first video. I previewed that. That was Go Ruck's selection class. This one guy makes it through this arduous 48-hour challenge, right? It was like watching Passion of the Christ. You have to hold the standard. These guys are just pushing this guy, and he says he's winning, which is still a great tactic, by the way. That's going in the best of at the end of this month. Is how you feeling? I'm winning, coach. He just exhausted. Then I moved to The Rise of Sufferfest. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's another documentary. Why do people pay for pain? Like, to get hurt. They're signing waivers to, like, hey, you might die. Like, there's literal waivers. And there are people, unfortunately, I'm not trying to make light of this at all, but people who have seriously gotten injured and or experienced death due to, injuries at these events, which is very, very sad. And I'm sad to hear it. But before I talk about The Rise of Sufferfest and we move to the movie for this week, Jake, would you ever do an obstacle course race? So we're talking Spartan, Tough Mudder, There's this one over in the UK called Tough Guy. That's where it originated with Mr. Mouse. It's in the documentary. I highly encourage you to check it out. What do you think of these Tough Mudder, obstacle course races? Are you a fan? Like, could you pay to suffer? Whether you're doing it just for fun or compete. What do you think about this?
I find it a lot harder to pay to suffer in an individual event.
Okay.
So those don't appeal to me because it's just me, and I don't have the motivation of the person next to me to suffer through it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Right. I've paid to suffer through plenty. I would argue that I paid to play soccer, which was paying to suffer through something. And people are like, no, soccer's supposed to be fun. No, it's not. You get kicked, you get pulled, you get bit, you get shoved, you get all of these things, and you're running a small endurance race over 90 minutes, and it's probably 95 degrees outside, and you're getting sunburned. Like, no, there's very little that's fun when you actually describe it. I enjoy the crap out of it. And I was willing to pay for that because I was suffering along with somebody. And I think that is what the big benefit was for me, the big motivating factor to go through that suffrage. An individual obstacle race like that, I just can't, from where I'm sitting right now, can't find the motivation to pay for something like that.
Yep. I think you could do it if you did as a team. So like when you watch these videos, all these people probably like, and they're dressed up and they got mud on their face, they're bloody, they're getting shocked by like 100, what is it? I don't remember how many thousands of volts, but lots of volts, right? They're getting just shellacked. I think I could do it as a group because some of the things in my life, if I put winning into it, ruins the experience, right? I think there's a point of life where you're like, okay, this is my thing. I'm doubling down. I am shooting for success, winning, whatever that means. Like I want accomplishment. But in this case, like it's so absurd. I could care. Like I'm not going to be a professional OCR racer like Amelia Boone or some of these other people that were featured in this documentary. But the group thing is interesting. Like the people who would have the physical capability. Like I'm not trying to beat a time. Like let's get rid of any semblance of the goal is to complete this thing. Okay. But to suffer together is interesting. Like I like that portion of sports. I would be willing to pay to suffer if I did it with somebody. We're all kind of same level-ish. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses depending on your size and your athletic ability, but I'd be willing to do it then. So if I just kept the absurdity, oh man, remember when you got shocked? Like I would love to like see you suffer and me suffer and us laugh at each other. That I would like. Okay, so I would do an OCR, but I would never do it alone. So I agree with that. I wouldn't just do it by myself. The point I want to make about Sufferfest before we move to the next movie of the media of the week is people want challenge. A lot of these people that are doing these courses are very inoculated to comfort. Everything of their life is comfort, kind of like the comfort crisis like we covered. So if there is that much of an industry, millions of dollars, people paying, they want challenge. They want to go through something hard. It's just in us to be able to do something. It's like Fight Club. I mentioned that as well, where you look around and you just see the world differently, and it's a filter, right? I mean, if you are a team or an organization and you have a reputation for really working hard, well, guess what you attract? People who want to work hard, right? So I liked it. It was very compelling. The guy that made it had his own cool story arc as well. He was pretty soft. He's a writer. He learns to be tough through it. He becomes a dad. He didn't want to be a dad or wasn't ready to be a dad, but then becomes a dad. It's very cool. So I encourage you to check that out. Once YouTube and I get on the same page and we can put links in, we'll put the link to the Rise of Sufferfest as well in there. Very, very cool. So that's kind of the two working hard was that the standard and the Rise of Sufferfest. And as we switch to the second half of the month, this is the next one. I could not resist, Jake. We're moving towards working smart. And of course, what movie would Kevin pick? Okay, it's viewer's choice of working smart. Of course, we're going to watch Moneyball. All right. Now, one of the first baseball books like that I read in high school. So this dates me. I devoured this thing. I was the general manager playing video games. I love being the worst team. So the A's currently are terrible again, wouldn't you know? So the idea that you can turn around a team kind of like the Diamondbacks or the Reds or any of these, like the Golden Knights, they've been pretty good for the most part. Any team where you can take it, go from like kind of worst to first, or you get rid of all your best players and you still find a way to win is really interesting to me. So we're going to look at Moneyball in the concept of working smart. And I'm so excited. So any final thoughts on Sufferfest or your ideas on Moneyball, working smart?
Sufferfest, I'm glad that you worked Moneyball in there to watch something a little bit more uplifting than watching people suffer. Moneyball is a great story. You know, not just working smart, but working different. I mean, my favorite quote from that movie is, you know, something along the lines of, there's terrible, then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us.
Yeah.
There's some great quotes in there to really change perspective and try to fight on a different battlefield than what was currently being fought, or than where it was currently being fought. Between that and the interaction he has with David Justice of, you know, Justice isn't really buying into what they're doing, and he's like, hey, I get what you're doing here, Billy. It's cute, but I'm an old vet. I know my way around. I don't need any of this. And he changes the perspective on David Justice. And he's like, how much do we pay you to play? And, you know, he's like, $8 million. I'm like, no, see, David, that's not correct. We pay you $4 million. And the Yankees pay the other half of your salary. They actually pay you to play against them. That's what the Yankees think of you, David. It's great, that change of perspective. And David Justice is like, oh, okay, fine. All right, Billy, I see your point. I get your perspective. I'll do my part. So, yeah, great story. I just actually watched it maybe 2-3 weeks ago just for fun. I saw it was on Prime, and so I threw it on and listened to it while I worked. And yeah, it's a good story.
I have it I had it on repeat. I tend to have either music or movies on when I do like big presentations. I just like the inspiration from them sometimes. The thing that it's working different is kind of the idea, but man, I had that thing just rolling. And I love Jonah Hill and the dynamic he has with Brad Pitt. So we'll talk about that next week too, like actual takeaways in terms of working smart, working different. All right, number 4. I won't take too long on this, but I will ask Jake what he thinks. Got a good question with this that we talk about in performance coaching when we studied it. Is your flow trigger of the week? Now, flow triggers are preconditions. So what needs to be in place for flow to show up? And ideally, we have 6 or 7 in place. We do have a formula for that, a recipe called our Structure and Style. That'll be forthcoming in a course called Structure and Style, where we talk about how to apply the concept structure of a game and adding flow triggers to that. Today, we are going to talk about the challenge skills ratio. This is the golden rule, like even the most important flow trigger is what's been said. And the challenge skills ratio is that sweet spot and it's talked about in the talent code, which we had an episode on. So go check that out. That was a good deep read, a long deep read. That was a good one. But the idea that you have this optimal balance where you stretch and don't snap. So it's where you have a good challenge and you have enough skills, and then you hit this kind of slot machine, everything comes together and you get into flow. And it is an internal flow trigger. So what we're looking for is this appears in the struggle phase of the flow cycle. So it goes struggle, release, flow, and then recovery. But the idea is that you're going to push against your challenge enough to where it drives your attention, but not so much that you go over the deep end. So that your numbers to know are 1 inch, 1 to 5%, 85%. Here's what I mean by that. If you are older, or if you have athletes that are have played a while, 1 inch, 2 inches at a time, we don't have to quantify that, is what you're looking for. So one of the floating theories out there is for older athletes or experienced athletes, they're fighting for those marginal gains. And so they're already very aware of where their challenge and skills is at, but they have a lot of fear in the system. So if you're doing something very challenging and you know it's going to be hard, kind of like a sufferfest, very discomfortable, then you need to just barely play with that. So start very, very small. 1 to 5% is the typical percentages that get played around. I think 4% was one, but I've heard more recently it's 5. How much of that is, it's very small. You can't go beyond that 1 to 5% number beyond what you could do yesterday. So if we think in push-ups, you could do 10 yesterday. Well, you're not going to jump up to 20 necessarily. Maybe you should just shoot for 11 or 12. So just that 1, 2, 3, 4% up there. And the last one is 85%. So how do you know when to take the challenge to the next level is when you kind of get to that 85% level of proficiency. That's when you need to bump it up again. So it's kind of like an 80-20 rule. You're not going for 100%. You need to work with that. Now, for those of you that are going to play with this a little bit, just notice it. You can look up any image of a flow channel. That's what it's called when you're in the challenge skills ratio optimally. You can see what the emotions are on the other side of that. So once you get up too high, you get into anxiety. And if you get too low, you get into boredom. And you can read the body language of your athletes when they get bored. It doesn't take, kids you can read them very easily. But when you see them getting bored, or you see them getting too tense, or any of the classic signs of anxiety, then you know that you need to dial back or you need to dial up. And that's what really is described as is this dial that you move up and you move down. And one thing I do want to note without getting into too much of the trigger is you don't have to be perfect. So one thing I've seen with coaches or even athletes is you try and nail challenge skills ratio on the head. You don't have to do that. You just guess. You throw something out there. You're like, oh, that was too much. Turn it down. Oh, that was too little. Turn it up. And I think that's what master coaching can be, is that you have the ability to manipulate the challenge based on what you see in front of you. And literature has proven that, is that the oscillation or the movement of too hard, too easy, just right, or vice versa, anywhere in between, forces us to pay attention. So that's what app design is doing with games. But Jake, the question I want to ask you is challenge and skills. Do you lean too hard, too easy, or are you pretty good at finding the just right challenge? What's your tendency of the challenge skills ratio? Because I'll tell you mine while you think. I tend to be on the extremes. So I'll go too hard. I'll bite off more than I can chew. Or I'll go too easy. I have a very hard time finding the middle ground. I would say I'm always above 5%, or I'm always below, way below. Mostly because of my own perfectionist tendencies or all or nothing thinking, which is my flow blocker of choices. I like all or none. So what do you lean towards when either as an athlete or as a coach? What do you think of challenge skills ratio?
As a coach, I lean too easy, too light. I think it's because I desire to see success from my players, and so I will have a tendency to not make it as difficult as I should to grow them. So I think that's where I'm leaning on as a coach. As a player, be too hard. Like there's no challenge that I haven't seen. Like I'm gonna go do that and end up just picking myself off more than anything else. Definitely two different mindsets though, which is really interesting. And I'd be curious how many coaches who were high-level former players still lean towards that player mentality. I think most high-level athletes are going to tick towards biting off more than they can chew.
Yep.
And I'm curious how much that translates into their coaching, that mentality, and then ends up alienating their players.
Yep. So
to speak. One potential cause for that, because we've all seen it, right? That realize, well, that person was we just actually kind of side note, I think it's applicable. I just got a notification that Michael Jordan is close to selling the Charlotte Hornets, right? And it'd be a really interesting case study. Someone who had so much success as a player now goes as an owner and has been a complete failure as an owner. That franchise hasn't done anything since he took over.
Yep.
And so how those two different mindsets play out, and or they should be two different mindsets, perhaps, looking at that case study. It would be a very interesting case study to look at, and how his mentality perhaps was consistent and maybe shouldn't have been.
All right. Now, I'll be a case study very briefly, okay? And you can comment on it as you want because you like to make fun of me, and I appreciate when you do. As a young coach, I wanted to bring more joy to the game, and I wanted to be liked, right? As all young coaches, I had more in common with the athletes than I did older coaches, for goodness sakes. So you're closer in age, right? You're 20 years old. Good Lord, 22. So I tended to want to have fun. Like I wanted to, because my goal at that young age was I saw so much seriousness. I just wanted to come out next year. Like everything else was secondary. I wasn't coaching at the varsity level. So I wanted to have the fun. Now, give me a decade. Okay. Kevin's different. And I have proof. So like you show me the evidence, Kevin. All right. Well, now I tend to want to hold the standard. And it's very hard for me to hold that. I'm leaning more towards they don't like me because I hold the standard and I make it hard. And I'm trying to do it in love so they know, and I'm trying to still make it fun. I still have that. But I want the fun to be like it's like the league of their own. Like the fun is what makes it hard, or the hard is what makes it fun. Thank you. So like last night, this is 10U softball for context. If you throw 3 balls, the coach comes in and pitches. Well, what you'll see is that they come in and throw this nice little underhand lob, right? Because you want them to hit it. Like, this is cute. It's like T-ball. Well, the 10U girls, no, we are not doing that. So this is the first time I pitched. Our head coach is at a music concert, Winstock, and I pitching. Okay, so when we practice, I got the jugs machine dialed up. We're swinging quick, right? I'm not messing around. We're even half distance so that they get quick swings. They hit it or they don't, right? It's so much easier to practice the fast speed and then slow them down versus vice versa. So 3 times, count them, strike 1, 2, 3. I had 3 girls tell me to slow down yesterday, like before I pitched to them. Okay, I'm in power K position. I'm doing the whole little snap, which is not my thing. I only got 2 girls out on accident that I threw bad pitches. So I did pretty good. But they told me to slow it down. But what was interesting about that, I got shelled, Jake. Every time I pitch, I think besides the 2 times I got girls out because I made bad pitches, they crushed me. Like, we had 5 or 6 extra base hits. One of our best hitters, she had 2 home runs. So as much as they were saying, oh, Kevin, throw slower, when they did hit it, they did very well. And I smiled. I went out there and I'd say, hey, where do you want me to pitch it? Hey, I bet you can't do that again. Like, just that playful teasing, that you get out of an athlete to help them rise to the occasion. So I'm now more leaning towards the higher end as a coach. And I like that, like pushing that boundary and then still trying to find the fun within it.
Sure.
All right. Well,
all right. Before we move on, this doesn't need a response, but I think for our audience, as you're a player, as you're a coach, as you are a parent, understanding this is key, because I've come across parents that run this spectrum where, and oftentimes expectations cannot be nearly realistic, but are you wanting it to be easier so it looks successful? Okay, so is your team playing against teams that aren't as good? So it looks like your team is very successful because there are parents who like that. Well, my son's on the team that wins all the time, right? Or my daughter's on the team that wins all the time. And then there's the other side of that. Well, no, I want my child challenged. But, hey, like, all games have to be within 2 or 3 points or goals or whatever. And if it becomes to a certain point, it's too much, then it's like, what are we doing, right? So as coaches, as team organizers, not only does this happen at an individual level, also happens at a team level. And where do we fit in? Are we fitting in that cushy area where games are competitive? We're winning half, we're losing half. We've had a couple where we've gotten our butt whooped. We've had a couple where we've whooped a butt. That balance, striking that balance in a season is very important for overall experience and growth. And parents need to be aware of it just as much as the coach does.
Yep.
Right. But parents' motivation for what they want is different often than the coaches, potentially. Yes. So it's important for coaches to navigate that as you have your preseason meetings and things like that to set that expectation level. And it's also important for parents to be aware. So you have a correct lens for what you're watching.
Yeah. And that's one thing is getting back to the reputation of, like, if you're on Jake's team, this is what you're getting. And everybody knows it. And that's, here or there. So I'll save that. Let's wrap up with what caught our eyes, the interesting mailbag, or what was going on. I have some fun ones, Jake. I'll do the 2 easy ones, and then I'll throw this third one at you and see what you got. So I had 3 things this week. I'm going to try and cap it at 3 if we can on any of these episodes, but 2 easy ones just because I couldn't resist. The first one, I want full vindication for Nikola Jokic. I saw a childhood photo of him wearing a Nuggets like sweatshirt, but then there was one with him without a shirt, like full embarrassed, kind of like Tom Brady as a middle school kid. And as a kid who went through his own middle school phase, for lack of a better term, justification for all of us out there. If you had a pretty rough middle school transition or even into high school, and you came out the other side and you turned out 7 feet tall and you win a NBA championship, hat tip to you. But I've become a huge Jokic fan, just by his responses, losing the stinking trophy. He's got life in perspective. So if you want to go find that photo, you can. But I want to fully commemorate the Nuggets. This is so cool to have it's Denver. They haven't won a championship. This is great. I know it's not great for ratings. It is absolutely great for every other reason, though. So hat tip to him. The second one was there's an article I found that you can't buy no wins in the MLB, where all the teams that aren't spending are winning. And so kind of harkens us to our Moneyball, even though Moneyball lays aren't winning right now. But all these teams that spent all this money are struggling. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't even have to read the whole thing. I don't even care why. I just care that sometimes money is not the answer, and oftentimes isn't the answer. Money does help at times. But like we saw in the talent code, those shanty towns of talent hotbeds, it's not the flashy facilities that gets it done sometimes. So we saw that at scale. But the one I want to throw you by, and I think it's a little rhetorical, but I want to know if this would work in soccer, Jake, because I know soccer is it's similar to other sports where it's hard to officiate. So the officiating problem in youth sports is a big deal, right? It's hard to get officials, and then we harangue officials. I harangued officials at a tournament the other weekend because they were inconsistent with balls and strikes. Yes. It's part of the game. I wasn't mean. I said, come on. One particular place, though, put in a policy. So it got so far that they put in a policy of that if you get kicked out as a parent, if you violate the community guidelines, we're on YouTube, community guidelines, you have, in order to get back into watch your child, you have to umpire 3 games. The amount of harassment has unsurprisingly gone down. I would say that this is great. Like I don't like umping, so that's why I try to be nice as I can. If I disagree with something, that's way different, but I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for an umpire or an official of any sort. It's not easy. You have to really love the game. So this three umpiring thing is great. I think it's hilarious. Call people's bluff. I'm a fan. I think it should be universal throughout Little League, Babe Ruth, whatever the association is. Especially when it's not a playoff game, right? If we're talking anything under playoffs or something serious, or even if it was the playoffs, like you don't necessarily officiate the playoff game, but next year you're on the hook. So I don't know how to track this. Frankly, I don't care about all the logistics behind it. I think it's a great policy. It's the fact that you have to put yourself in their shoes or you can't come back. I think you talked about accountability earlier. That's accountability. So for what it's worth, that's what caught my eye this week.
That's a great idea. I'm very curious how they can enforce that and keep track of all that. But it's a great idea. For me, officiating is the older I get, the more appreciation I get for the incorrect calls. Because it's life. That is a part of life. You can't control everything. There are things out of your control. You're taking away from the kid. No, like I have never come across a situation in youth sports where the ref was paid off or the ref cared who won. The ref just cared to get paid. That's why they were there for the most part, right? And there's certainly a small population that do just love it's exercise for them. They love getting out and being outside and seeing some kids have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, the biggest thing that changed for me in refereeing was when I heard the quote, expectations determine behavior. And I would go to every field and I would expect the ref to get every call right. That is stupidity. That's idiocy. And my expectation actually changed. Like, okay, who do I typically have ref my games? I have retired people, or I have young kids who are just trying to make some money in the summer. Those are primarily who's reffing or officiating my games. Well, what's a realistic expectation of them, really? And it's for me that they're going to get a good amount of calls wrong, and there's going to be decisions that I'm just going to shake my head at. So once I did that, I really don't care about their decisions anymore. I protect my kids, and if there's situations where I can step in and correct them kindly, I will. That's about all I do with officiating. As long as my kids aren't in danger, you're going to make wrong calls, and they're going to go against us, and they're going to maybe create goals against us. And such is life. And now as a coach, as a teacher, I have an opportunity to teach them about life. Why on earth would I complain about that? Versus, bad call, now I'm going to start screaming and shouting at this poor human in the yellow. What have I taught the people who are watching me, who are looking up to me for answers? That's not how I'd want them to go through life. So that's not how I'm going to teach them to go through a soccer game.
Well, and you've been at enough sporting events that I have at let's just say high school, just for ease's sake, where some of the best people, and this is humanity as well, some of the best people, families, crowds, schools, are the worst fans. And you're like, I'm embarrassed to just even like be on the other side of this. Like everything was wrong. Like you're literally looking for what's wrong. And I think that's right. I really like your angle. Like you expect, I know that we've had a few umpires like get really close to 100% calls. I think Austin Kleon, he's a wonderful creative. I think he's a writer who draws or someone who draws and writes, but he has a book called Steal Like an Artist and Show Your Work and Keep Going. And in that, he has an exercise where he draws stars, just like think stars. And he says the humans are basically incapable of making a perfect copy. So he writes the same kind of star. The idea being we are not precision manufacturers, and so the idea we can't get every call right and life is not perfect is such a beautiful picture of life, of sports. And I think you are spot on with that point of view. It's like you're playing our good game. It's like, oh, they blew a call. Good. Well, Jocko's going to be proud of us.
That's the thing. Like when my players make mistakes, as a coach, I enjoy that. Like that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the failure so I know where to step in and teach. Why would a referee be any different? That's all I'm saying. And that doesn't mean you sit there and you yell at them. I can share plenty of stories where I have taught referees the rules apart from screaming at them. So if we're coaches, be coaches. Be coaches through the entirety of the process at the youth level. Now, if my multi-million-dollar contract is on the line, and I know you're getting paid a good chunk of money to be here, and you're devoting your life to it, now that changes the concept of what we're doing a little bit, certainly. But if we're talking youth sports here, there's 0 point to yell at a referee. Absolutely talk to them, talk about the rules and all that. You can engage them. That'll help them feel more comfortable as they do it. But screaming at them is absurd. Okay, 2 things that I noticed. Ready?
Yep.
First, Oklahoma softball. Oklahoma softball just rattled off 53 wins, I believe, in a row. Just won the Women's College World Series. Massive, massive achievement. Their post-game press conference after winning the title. Have you seen this?
It came up on my radar. I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay.
I did not watch it, but I did hear about it. Or I read
you need to go watch it. How well these young ladies were how well spoken these young ladies were was so impressive. you thought you were listening to three coaches talk. They shared their faith and their perspective on their achievement and their season. And it was very impressive to me. Even if you're someone who's not a Christian or believe in the God of the Bible, the understanding of perspective of something bigger than yourself and attaching value to it and not to the activity that you're doing comes through so strong in those three young ladies. For me, we've talked about being even keel, even headed, how John Wooden preached that. I know we both are big Brad Stevens fans, how Brad Stevens comes across that way for sure. If you don't have a perspective of something bigger than yourself and what you tie your value, your worth to is your performance on any given day, you cannot be even keel. Because you just humanly, you cannot perform that consistently. You will go up and down. So if you don't have that anchor outside of yourself to keep you steady, you can't rattle off 53 wins in a row. It's not possible as far as I'm concerned, unless you're playing, unless you're a superstar team playing a bunch of, 5-year-olds, right? When you're at that level where everyone's so close athletically, skill-wise, to win 53 games in a row, I can't imagine having any other way to do that than having an anchor outside of yourself and outside of your direct performance to keep you on such an even path, a straight path to get you through that. If you haven't watched that interview, I encourage you to go find it because it's so good.
One thing that is with that is we need more examples of like what it looks like. It's one thing to tell your kids, another thing is to show them. But even if you don't win 53 games or a national championship, it's like, when your season ends, more than likely it's going to win, lose. Well, how do you conduct yourself? Like, this is a master class in that. And I found it even more intriguing to add to your layer that one of their star pitchers is transferring to Nebraska. She went into the portal. Why? She's going home. She wants to be closer to family. So she has a value or a perspective that is bigger than, Oklahoma is the gold standard for softball right now, right?
Yep.
Have been for a while. She's leaving that program. Like, as an athlete or as a person, that gives me tingles to even think about why would you do such a thing. Yet, from what I'm hearing, and I need to see, that is not unreasonable. And the way the coaches described that, it was emotional. They support her. They understand. We still appreciate her. She'll always be a Sooner. Class all around. I don't know the coach, but I want to meet them now, coaches. I think that'd be great. Do check that out. All right, that was your first point. You had two. What was the second point?
If you get a chance, go look at the results of the NCAA track and field. Look at the track and field results for the NCAA this year and look at it across Division I, Division II, and Division III.
Okay.
And then just stop and think. Just look at those results because we get very, especially as parents, as kids, I got to make D1. I got to get D2. Oh, I only made D3. Like, that's the tendency that we have when we look at these. But good athletes are everywhere. And your development doesn't stop once you get to college. Okay. So you maybe got to a D3, but you still have the opportunity to grow. And that might be the best environment for you to grow. And at the end of your sophomore year or your junior year, all of a sudden you're running the same times as Division II or maybe even Division I. And now you can, maybe it's a possible transfer situation, or maybe you're just excelling where you're at and you need to stay there. But my point is, trying to give you guys some perspective on Division I, Division II, Division III. It's not the end all be all. Great athletes are everywhere. Coaches find these athletes everywhere. They develop them anywhere. Keep an open mind. Find the best fit for you, not just the best athletic spot that you can attain necessarily, because it's not all that it's cracked up to be.
We're going to have to do an entire series on this, Jake, because I would not consider myself an expert. That's too strong a word. I'm well-versed and learned in what's called sampling periods in try stuff and match quality, meaning how do you find fit? Like, what do you look for? So I'm very well-versed in those two topics and how they apply to mostly careers, but also play and life. And I think this would be a great series. The reason being, when you bring that up, so if we know that across the board performance is basically the same as what you're saying, you looked at those stats, still go look them up because he alluded to this to me another time and I didn't believe it. So, and I trust him, don't get me wrong, but I still wanted to see him, right? Like how close are they? And they're unbelievably close. Is the idea that, what are you chasing for, right? Some people chase because they want to be, they want to play for Alabama. They want to play for North Carolina. And as kids, we both love colleges. We had our college favorites. It would be cool to be that. With a little more wisdom and time, I can see that, you were choosing for academics. What are you going to school for, right? That's a big one. Do you fit and align with the coach, right? Go to a practice. Does that fit you? Is it the right style? Because a lot of coaches at smaller schools, it's kind of like marrying a family, right? You marry the coach, and do I want to be a part of this? And then also the size. I think we underestimate how many introverts we have in this world that just don't fit at the big house in Michigan. Like some people want to go be in that environment and they thrive there. Other people, it's more of a stretch. And so if you look at the academics, the coaching, the size of the school, and I get financials help. Like if you don't come from much and you get a scholarship, congratulations. Like we'd have to do the series on this to be able to parse things apart.
Yep.
I think the main point you're getting to is performance aside, fit. When you get fit, you get grit, and fit is a big deal. And what does it mean to find a fit for a school, at least in the terms of youth sports? If you made me pick right now, and I will end on this, okay? I'll ask you as well. Your kids are a little older, and you're gonna be a college coach. All right. What is the ideal fit for you, knowing what you know to be a coach to run a college program? Now you can pick your size, you can pick your location, you can pick almost anything you want, maybe even your mascot, whatever, right? You don't have to, but if you're going to take over a program, what would that look like to you now? And I'll start, because I pondered this. I wanted to be a college coach for a long time. I did get a coach 2 years at the JUCO level locally. I still have a hinting desire to coach at the college level. My kids are grown. I would actually pick a small town, right? Maybe D3, D2, doesn't have to be D1. Leaning more towards rural Midwest, although I'm open to West and East as well, not so much South. And I would want to have a rich baseball history. Although that doesn't vibe with my wanting to Moneyball the thing and like turn it into a baseball town. But the existing culture, like this is baseball. We love baseball here. I like that. And that appeals to me. And then staying at such a location where you're embedded in the community appeals to me far more than the professional ranks where you have to travel all the time, than the high-end college. Like you think, excuse me, the major conferences for baseball. And they're out there and they're great programs. Vanderbilt, oh my goodness. I've not ever been Vanderbilt in my life, right? I don't have the facilities, the greats, and I think Vanderbilt's cool. I love the gold, by the way, as you can tell. But that was where I lean now. So how about you? What would be your coaching fit if you had to pick one in this moment in time?
I think I would prefer a smaller school that had kind of more the underdog vibe, right? Like we're constantly trying to beat the man, if you will. Find that to be easier to coach. I find it more rewarding to coach that. Honestly, I think is what the deal is. That soccer is bigger than the football program, if there is a football program.
Ooh.
And I would want the game field to be top notch. Those are pretty much my three things. Like I want the game facility, when people come to see us, they're coming to a top-notch facility. Not that it has to be this big booming Texas high school football stadium. Just that the field is quality. It's grass. It's flat. It's beautiful. It's green. It's well manicured, well put together, and it just has its own vibe.
It has character.
It has character too. So the actual surface is class, and then it just has some character, some uniqueness to it. It's not just like a normal, oh, hey, there's a soccer field at the school. Okay, let's go play. It's like, oh, it's that place. That would be ideal.
I'm gonna agree with that. Thank you for that layer, because I've seen some fields. Shay sends me them. Like I think it's BYU has the mountains in the like outfield, or like you get those woodsy type. Like I'm a fan of like we're in Minnesota. We have a lot of amateur baseball, considering we're a northern state. But you get a field that is older, like it has the grandstand, and you could tell it's a baseball place. Sometimes they have the pine trees in the back. Oh, like you said, character. Give me some history and character mixed with the modern. I'm in. Like because if you're spending a lot of time at this field, you want it to be classy, right? Whatever that means.
And that's why it's easy to get romantic about baseball for me.
Yes.
Right. Like when you go to Fenway.
Yeah.
There's just that romanticism of what had happened there before. It's like going to the play. It's like going back on a date to the location of your first date. Almost.
Yeah.
Not that I have any ties to Fenway myself.
No.
But just being a fan of baseball and knowing some of the history of baseball, being able to go there and sit there. I haven't sat at Fenway, but I've sat in enough baseball outfields, even just not Fenway, but just other older stadiums. Wrigley would be another one, where you sit there and you feel the history, and it's hard not to get romantic about it. Someone asked me what my favorite sport was, and I guess, well, it depends on what the qualification is.
Mm-hmm.
What's my favorite one to play? Soccer. What's my favorite one to watch on TV? Football. What's my favorite one to watch in person? Hockey. Which one is the one that I'm most romantic about? Baseball. Like I will sit there and reminisce about baseball all day long. I tried to play it once, and it was a disaster. But the history, the feel of baseball. I mean, just going and sitting in an outfield somewhere with a Coke and a hot dog. It's romantic to me. No.
Oh, no.
Bag of peanuts. Maybe I get an ice cream sundae out of one of those little mini helmets.
Yeah.
That's beautiful to me.
It is beautiful. What are your odds of coaching? Well, end on that. What are your odds of college coaching? What do you think about that these days?
Of me actually coaching in college at some point?
Yeah, you running that college thing. You have kids about my age, and I think we're on similar trajectories, and maybe that's why we're running this channel, so we can learn and get better before we apply. Hey, what's your qualifications? Well, I did a channel for 10 years and learned all sorts of cool things.
Yeah.
What are your odds?
I don't know that my schedule would allow it right now, so I'm going to say pretty low. I still have, a lot of hopes to be an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I have the time, or I don't know that I have the bandwidth to make it the priority that it would need to be a head coach. Is how I would put it. But I would love to be an assistant coach and coach at the collegiate level. For me, what I desire is the relationships that you can build in that environment that you can't in the club scene. So
correct. I'm in the same boat as you, except my timeline is a decade. When my kids are graduated, I'll reevaluate where I'm at. At least right now, like when I was younger, I was like, I'll just jump in and be a GA, and then I'll become an assistant, do that for a long time. I have so much to learn still. It's unreal. But I agree. I'm addicted. We talked about this the other day, to seeing progress and growth, like who young people become, not just as athletes, but as people, and to be a part of somebody's story. So if I did coach at the college, I would never do a 2-year. I would want all 4 years. Mm-hmm. I would want to see them from babies as high schoolers to when they graduate. They are academics, they're athletes, they're amazing people, kind of the Amos Alonzo Stagg. I just think I have a long way to go, to run a program and run it. It's one thing to run a program. It's another thing to run it well.
Sure.
And that would be the only thing. And maybe I'm holding it too high of a bar for myself, but I think that is at least in the proper perspective or cons. And I needed the time for that. I think as a 20-year-old, I had no idea. Now I at least have an idea, and I'm a little gun shy. And I think give me another decade and I'd have enough maturity and hopefully a little bit of wisdom and experience to be able to contribute to such a thing. But right now, I don't have the time either. So, All right. Well, good episode. Let's wrap up. Thank you for watching. So take this and run with it, whether it was one of our actual topics or shaved ice or Adam Sandler or what have you. But take these, run with them. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a most wonderful week wherever you're at and whatever you are up to, and never stop learning. Jake?
Adios. That was a great send off. We'll see you next time.
So yeah.